Hi, Jesslyn. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
How are you?
Fine, sir.
Okay. Happy Onam once
Happy
again.
Holidays,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you. We will wait for Sri Ram to join as well. Just give it a moment.
Yes.
I will give a recap of yesterday. Okay, and so in the meantime, okay. So it will be a quick high level recap. Okay, so let me share the screen. Okay, so yesterday we started with the introduction to frameworks. Okay, uh, frameworks are Python-based web development frameworks, which is a set of functions in a library. Okay, so we have a module called Flask, which helps facilitate web development. Application developers can use this module to build web applications. So let's say you're creating a library system or a bank accounting system. You can build your application uh, which uh, which can use this Flask module. Okay. Now, Flask is an open source Python web development framework, and Django is another uh, web development framework. Both are open source and both use the module view template architecture. Okay, so module view template architecture is used. We went into the details of Flask yesterday. Flask is written in Python and is built with the WSGI toolkit. Yeah, web service gateway interface allows you to have functions which can easily do the task of taking the request, and it has functions to route the request, and so interact with the web server. Okay, so toolkit has the gateway, which is adopted based on a Python-based web application development standard. So the web server gateway interfaces between the application and the server. A server means you have a web server running in the back end, and the application, like a banking application or a student application, could be deployed, which interfaces with this gateway, and the gateway interfaces with the server. Okay. Now, Ginger 2 templates are available to build the pages. Okay. So the page itself has web-based HTML, and the HTML uh, includes some template tags as well as the HTML tags. Okay. Now, Flask is discovered or developed by Armin Ronahar. This is his picture. Now, what he did is, for an application developer, it is enough to have his own web server. So he has packed one web server along with the Flask module for development purposes only. So where the developer need not run behind a system administrator to provision a web server. When you build application to test and run, he is given one development server inside. Okay, so a web application developer can build uh, his own application without need for another web server. Okay. However, when you build your application, you have to deploy that can be deployed on a production-based server, Python-based WSGI HTTP server called Gunicon. Green Unicorn or Gunicon is a production-based server which has capabilities to receive the request, process the data, get get the resulting HTTP response back to the end user. Okay, so this is for production, and whereas Flask has a development web server by itself. Okay, so Flask contains this WSGI toolkit called WorkZwig and a Jinja 2 template. Now we'll see that in detail in the later slides, but this is the high level. Okay, and this was the because when Flask uses the model view template architecture, what is a view and the template? Template has to do with the format of the data being presented. So template uses HTML to position with HTML tag, and also template has data to fetch from the database. And when all the user interactions can be inside what's called a context. Okay, the context is used along with the template. So that's how the page and all the presentation is. Whereas a view is a Python function. Okay, Python has functions. So the Python function will render, does the job of rendering a particular HTML page. Okay, so the view renders, in this example, the user went to say from the URL store/blog, and the view receives that request, routes it, and fetches the correct HTML of the blog and returns it back to the end user. So the view does the job of rendering the page. Okay, and similarly, the user navigated to another page /store/about, it will render the about page. /contact returns a contact page. So view combines the job of rendering the page, and it renders the data along with the template. Okay, so this is this high level. The end user browser has a request sent, and that request is coming back from the web server, and the web server might have data in a SQLite or say all the books borrowed from the library. So the library system, current books borrowed could be in a database. Okay, so that's combined, and then the Flask based application returns the HTTP response back to the browser. Now, this Unicorn is the green unicorn in production, which is a web server gateway interface. Okay, why? Because it routes the request to scale it up and all that. Okay. So yeah, I was in this slide where we're going through the application architecture. The end user uses a browser to send a HTTP request, which is received by the Flask WSGI interface, and it interacts with the web server to get the data from a SQL database, and then puts everything together from the correct page point of view, and returns the data and the page to the end user with HTTP response back. So the Flask server interfaces with the web server, and this Nginx is it's a reverse proxy. Now, in terms of what a proxy and a reverse proxy is, proxy takes this request and routes. It could have multiple requests and interfaces with this web server to get back the correct response. Okay, so a proxy takes several end user requests The proxy is we say it's a representation of the server. Okay, it interfaces with the end user, and the proxy talks to the web server. Okay, proxy interface between the web server and the end user. Okay, and the reverse proxy is like once the request comes in, it routes to the appropriate server. So the reverse proxy, Nginx, what it does here is it will interface with more than one correct servers. Okay, and then it's like a load balancer on the other side. Okay, it's like you walk into a restaurant and there is somebody who takes you to the correct table. Okay, so the reverse proxy does the job of hiding that end server, the exact server. There could be more than one according to the number of load that reverse proxy takes you to the correct server, and the correct server is hidden from the by keeping the proxy, the exact server is hidden behind that particular proxy. So in this manner, it hides the correct exact server so that nobody hacks in. It's like a security to the server, and it's also like a load balancer. It's like when you went into the restaurant, one person leads you to the exact table, right? And he is inside the restaurant managing that. Okay, he seats a set of people in one table, another set of people on another table, like that. So that's what a reverse proxy does. And it's just a configuration. It's a software here, Nginx. Okay, so this is a high-level architecture. So what is a model in a model view template? So in a model view template, models represents the data in the table. So here is a product table in the database, and its equivalent is a product model, which has the fields like product ID, the title, the price of that product, and so on. A title is a product name, so iPhone, and the price. So here, the model is a representation of the table in the database at the application layer. And each model corresponds to a Python class. Okay, a Python class is the object which you created when you created the person class, uh, vehicle class, and so on. And each model maps to a single database table. Attributes of the model represents the database field. So model models.model is a superset of the model which you inherit from. So it's this models.model is the representation of all the models, like a parent object from which each object is inherited. Each model is inherited from that superset. So that's the MBT design paradigm. Okay, the components of it is you have a products model, then you have a view, which is a Python-based function, you have a HTML template, and all this is when the request comes in, it gathers all the information and then puts it back and Flask, the Python library, the Python module, renders the HTML and the context back, okay, to the end user. Okay, so end user could click somewhere and that context again sent back to the server. Okay, so there is a HTML get and a post happening here. When post is when you are entering data. Okay, so here is an example of the URL request where the web browser points to some URL which is saying, let's say, the time now, the present time. And it has behind the scene, there's a template which is showing HTML, and the view itself is doing the job of routing the incoming request and fetching the correct HTML and the context and sending it back to the browser URL. Okay, to give an idea, title and counter are data fields in a page. Title and counter are dynamic fields, and the view contains dynamic fields. So the template has HTML, and template has embedded dynamic fields. Okay, the template separates the page presentation. Page presentation here is the HTML from the data. So the page presentation could show each blog one after another. Okay, weekly you are blogging, and that blogs could appear one after another. The data of that, this blog 1, blog 2, blog 3, is sitting as data in the database. So the template has the two elements of the HTML and the template data. Okay, we'll see the template data. Example here is, think of this as a page. The data elements of the page is, I have two elements here. One is a counter, another is a title. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. The data is changing, the counter is incrementing. Okay, so this field is the value of the counter. Okay, and this field is the title. Okay, so the counter and title are the data elements. Whereas the page you see is having some background color change, red, blue, green. You could think of this as the HTML. Okay, the background color of the HTML. So all these together are combined and rendered back to the user as a HTTP response. So from a developer standpoint, when you build application, you use Flask module, and you use a Flask what is it? In the IDE, you'll use an IDE, interactive, PyCharm developer IDE, and with that, you create an object of the Flask module. So you import the Flask module. Okay, we'll see the details, but this 10 line of code is all it takes to build an application. Okay, in the first part, you are importing a module which you installed earlier. So from Flask, import Flask. This is a Python class, and object is equal to class. Okay, so you instantiate an object, you create an object app is the object, is equal to Flask. This is purely syntax. Okay, so object equal to class, and app.run at the bottom allows you to run the application. Now, between these, you have a view definition, okay, which is just a function, hello world, return hello world. So in your page, which is coming back, it's going to show hello world, okay. And on top of this function, this @ symbol is basically a decorator. And so the decorator is also available from this app module. App.route is a function which takes the HTTP request, which is this /, which is the landing page, the home page, which the browser is going to. So back in the store, store.blog, store.about, the store itself is a base landing page with this /. Okay, so the URL goes like store / means that's the page in which the default application will land. So what we're saying here while defining the view is, for that navigation of the landing page, return this. Okay, so for when the user comes to the home page, it will just show hello world. Okay, so that's this function. So these functions are app.route, app.run, all made possible through Flask. So there are other functions. Okay, so we will come to that in the following slide. But when you create from your application, this is the folder structure for your project. Okay, my Flask app is your location in your desktop where you'll create a project. And in that, you could have static files, you'll have template files like that, and you have Python files like that. So the Python file students.py is your main application which will run. It will have the definitions of the view, and the templates are created in a separate folder. You'll create this folder called templates, under which you'll have the landing page or the home page called index.html, typically student.html. There could be other pages between them. They could be navigating and all that. And one more folder, static, which has got the style sheet elements, meaning the style elements of what you saw here, the background color, the font size here, the type of color on the font. All this is coming from a style sheet. Typically in web development, we have a cascading style sheet, CSS. So that's a main.css. If your project is using a local style sheet, it can be named with any name here, main.css, under this folder. So from a file structure point of view, the way the files are organized is like your project at the top level, the templates with all the HTML at this level, the Python files containing the view and other things here, view and data and all that inside here, and students.py, static, the web pages, style elements in another one. So this is the way the file structure is organized. Okay. Flask has other functions apart from this app.route, app.run. So we have other other functions like render template. Render template method, it's a function which renders the template with a context. So here you might have multiple pages like blog.html, about.html. So it will just render with this function. So we'll see the details. The request.method. So when you're interpreting the incoming request from the browser, from the end user, can be a HTTP post or HTTP GET. So you can interpret it with the request.method variable, which can be a GET or a post. Okay. Post is when you are sending some information. Okay. Let's say you're giving your login, username, password, that you're typing in some text boxes in the field, in that page. So that is collecting the information, posting to the server. And get is retrieving information from the server. You might be sending your student roll number and then the student name, other course details and grade details are pulled back. Okay, you might be clicking on a specific blog, which is taking the context as that blog ID, and the next page goes and fetches the details of the blog in a blogs.html and returns in the to the browser. Okay, the blog details are returned back. So that returning back is a get. Okay, so when you send a bit of information and get some detailed information, you are doing a get operation. Whereas you're sending some login, sending some fields of text information to the server, that's the post. Okay, and then URL for other functions like send file, your and redirect. Sometimes when you finished your application and you're clicking a log out, you're redirected back to the landing page. So that's a redirect function. Which you'll all see in this code. So here is an example here. The route lands on the index function and it is returning the login page. So as soon as you go to the landing page, this / is the decorator on this function. It means that when it is the landing page, return the login.html. So it renders the login.html. So the view is doing the job of rendering the page back. Here, upon login, when the method is post, so here def login is our function, request.method is post, and from that form, if the username field has the admin user, return redirect URL for success. So I have some success.html, which takes this form, redirect to success. So if the login is proper, with the username as admin, it will take me to the success page. If not, it will just remain there, redirected back to the index page, redirected to the home page. So again, here, when you're saying redirect to login to success, here is the route for that. So if it is success, this view will give me a message, user logged in successfully. Okay, so this is all the view definitions here. And finally, app.run. This is purely syntax. If name equal to main, app.run means it runs the application. Okay, so that's, and now there are some details in the templates. So we saw HTML. Okay, so typically HTML as the doc type HTML, wrapping the HTML tags, wrapping the whole HTML with this syntax. And then you have a head tag and a body tag. Okay, redundancy in all the HTML pages need not be there. Okay, page need not have every time HTML head tag, body tag. If you include this block head, end block, block body, end block syntax, and this base.html is written one time and kept as a super template. Okay, the parent template, from which the next time, if you have another HTML and still other HTMLs, you will just use this template inheritance, which says extends base.html. So I have this base.html written once, and from there I'm using a template inheritance to extend with this syntax. This is purely syntax, flower bracket percent extends base.html, and there is no longer necessary, it's no longer necessary to have the HTML head and body tag in every HTML page. Okay, so index HTML page in this case will not have the head tag, body tag. So thereby writing the HTML is easier. Now this is the Jinja 2 template. Okay, so what you're seeing with flower percentage flower tags is Jinja 2 template tags, and it's called the template definition language, simplifying the page. Okay, nothing more. Okay, so it's easy to read and all that. Okay, so here is a section dot title. Now section is an object. Okay, section dot title will show some title, and here we are showing a link. Okay, story dot headline. So now it's a blog, stories headline in uppercase, and the detail could be there below. Okay, so templates have conditions too. You have if, else, and if condition. If some field is like that, welcome to the weekend, else get back to work. Some relatively it will show different text based on some value of a field. Okay, so the if, else, and if format, you don't have to remember anything, just everything is there already, you will just reuse only, so don't have to memorize anything. So here there seems to be a for loop for in and for syntax. So here what's the page is showing various countries, so I'm having a for loop which is for, this is an index for country in countries. Okay, it's more like an English language. For country in countries, countries is passed to the page. Okay, for each country. So that's what this is. When you put two flower brackets, it is country.name. Okay, each country name. So India, United States, like that will appear in the H1 tag format. So you're embedding template value at that particular H1 location. And inside UL, unordered list, this is going to another loop inside for city in countries.city list. Okay, and list items is double flower brackets value of the city. So it will show up end result as let's say United States, New York, Miami, like that, India, Mumbai, Bangalore, like that. Okay, so this is the way it shows up. So this is there inside where? Inside the HTML. Okay, so it's a mix of both HTML and template tags. Now templates also have context. Now why is there a context? Context will determine the value where you clicked. There are a set of blocks you saw on the page. It could be like various cards and things like that. Block 1, block 2, block 3 appear as separate web cards, and you click on a particular block, then the ID of that is the context. Okay, that ID is the context. Now user has clicked on a particular block. What should be the next action? You want to read the contents of that block. Okay, so that becomes, that ID is passed in as the context. Okay, template context, and inside, in this case, I have a book. Okay, instead of blog, it's a book info. The details of all that books are fetched. Okay, so the blog details of the blog. Okay, so there is a query set here which can fetch a collection, a list of values of all the model values can be fetched. Now books, let's say there are, it's a library and there are few books which you have borrowed. Okay, so the query set here colon as book.objects.all. This is purely syntax. You don't have to bother. This is my class, the Python class, or the model. The model.objects.all is the standard syntax. So here you see publisher.object.all, and this with this brackets. This means that all the books is passed in this context. Okay, and all the publishers also passed in this context. So the context will allow me to change what values you are fetching and returning it back. I could be fetching details of a blog. I could be fetching the books which you borrowed and then sending it back, rendering it back. So with this context, the page template get embedded. We'll pass this context into the HTML. Okay, that's where, if you see for country and countries, this countries becomes a collection or a context which is passed to the page. Okay, and here is post and query. Sometimes when you go to, here is the example, when you go to, here is a to-do list, a simple to-do list. Okay, a list of tasks which you want to do for the day. Okay, and it's my application which I'm creating called to-do app. Okay, and what does a to-do app contain? It has got a list of tasks. Okay, when it got added, and there are some links to modify them. Okay, and there this is my landing page. So because this is the home page. Okay, default this is local host colon 5000 is a Flask default port, and the / is almost not required when you browse it from the URL. Okay, so it just shows as soon as I land in the home page, I'm seeing all my tasks from the database which is to be done. Okay, and also in the landing page, I've got one single text box which allows me to add the task here and click add task. Okay, when I add task, let's say there were 3 initially: wake up at 4 a.m. exercise, and what is that, self-study till 7, something like that. And then let's say the 4th task was added newly. Click on add task. The task gets added to my database of list of tasks, and then that's the post operation. That's the post. Okay, when you post it to the database, then you redirect back to the home page where you getting a get operation. Then all the values which are in that particular to-do list is fetched back once again. At that time, the newly added task gets appended to the bottom. Okay, so this is a simple to-do list. We'll see the details. Okay, so that's when the get operation shows back all the values. Okay, so post and get. Okay, so the context is going to fetch all the values and get it back. Okay, so post here, we are seeing the view code. Okay, what this screen shows is a view code. If request dot method is post, else it is get. Okay, it's on the same view. We're coding request dot method is equal to post, then it reads the form value request dot form, the text field called content, okay, is fetched to my task content and passed to object equal to class. That means new task is equal to do, which is my class. The content is added as a new value, new task. And then the db.session writes to a database. Now, for a moment, bear with me on this db.session. There is a database, okay? And to that database, we are adding this new task, okay? Dot commit, db.session.commit saves the database commit. Basically, in a database operation, commit saves that record to the database. Okay, so adds this record to the database. So what happened so far is it added this task I typed start Python class at 9 a.m. to the database. Then the next step is to fetch back. Next step is to fetch back. So the next step, request dot method is no longer post. It is a get. So it comes here else. Tasks. That means I'm fetching all my tasks. I'm fetching all my tasks, and it's allow me. Yeah. So to do dot query dot order by or dot all. This is purely syntax. Okay. To do is the class name dot query dot order by within bracket to do dot date created. I have a column date created. I want to put it in ascending order, the oldest task being on the top. Okay, so dot all. So this is going to do fetch all my tasks from the database. Okay, and that's going to be available in this task object, task variable. Okay, and that is passed as what? As a context along with the landing page index.html, and this render underscore template, a Flask function, allows me to combine HTML with the template task and the context as tasks. So database task is the white task, what you're seeing here. Task equal to that task means this orange color task equal to is the value which I'll put in the template. As we saw countries, right? So that is inside the HTML. So similarly here, inside the HTML will be one tasks for this orange task, okay? So the context is handed off, and the context and the HTML is handed off back to the user. So that makes it appear like this. The new task gets added, okay? So that's how the user, that's how this particular application is going to respond. Okay, I just gave you an understanding of the get and the post. Okay, and here is a single field with the task content. Okay, clear. So now in today's session, so that was a recap what happened yesterday. In today's session, we will see Flask project setup in PyCharm. Okay, now, if you have not installed PyCharm, you can install. If it is not there at the moment, like Jesslyn, you can follow along also. Okay, so just I will just walk you through the slide first, and then we'll do the hands-on. Now, once you start the PyCharm IDE, okay, you don't start anything right now. You create a Flask project which points to one location in your desktop. Okay, the developer with his desktop or laptop is able to create a project, okay, a Flask project, and in some folder in that in his desktop, where the location of the project files structure will be. Okay, the project is located. When you say create project, you are pointing to the location where you want the file to be created. And this is a virtual environment. We'll see what it is. There is the base interpreter of Python. Okay, in python.exe file where it is located. And then it's going to prompt, you want to create a new project on this window. Sorry. This window means it will open the existing project or it will create a new project on the current screen. Okay, and create a main.py as welcome script. So first default will be main.py. The default file will be created for you. Now you might ask, why should I use PyCharm? Okay, so it makes the application development with quicker. Okay, basically it makes that operation. IDE makes the application development quicker. It has got some organized manner of where the files are located. Here is main.py, and the folders and the files are all organized in certain location, like I showed the project structure earlier. Okay, so that's this, and here is settings. I can go to input the interpreter here, and all the additional Python libraries, which we talked about, Flask and all that, can be installed from inside this settings. So this project will have the Flask module by adding this plus, adding a specific module from the list of open source Python packages. So this IDE helps you do that. Okay. So when you click on this plus, it shows up all the active packages, and you have to update some packages here because this is setup tools. Some of the setup packages will have to be updated because the versions have changed. Okay, so be sure to choose a specific version for pip and setup tools. So this is some default packages which are to be installed and upgraded all the time. Yeah, pip, otherwise it will sort of message back saying that it is not yet updated. Okay, so that's the way it works. So this available packages, you click and install specific packages. So once you choose and install, here comes Flask and Jinja 2. This is after Flask is installed. So this will come up in along with the setup packages. So this means that I've installed the latest version of Flask. So version, latest version. So latest version, both are like in this case 222. So the latest version, the open source is that, and the current version in your project is this. So that's what it is. And this is one sample to-do application. Okay. So this we'll see in a while. Okay. So that's how the routing and the schematic of all what's happening. At a very high level, I'll just touch base this quite quickly. The request from the form and this text box, when you add the task is coming in, the post is coming in, the view is written like app.py. You look for the .py file for the view, which is the main Python file. Okay, this is the view. And the view coordinates the SQL fetch from a SQLite database, which is packed, okay, along with Flask, okay, SQLite database. So there is a database, and the screens are like index.html, the landing page, the home page, and the other screens are here for the, so when you write back, when you write, it writes to the database, and then that's the post operation. And when you get the information back, it's a get operation. It goes back with the new task added. You could update a task with these two links, and you could delete a specific task. It will take away some task from your task list. So this is the schematic of the to-do app, which shows things like adding a task, updating and deleting a task. Okay, I'll give you a short break. let's come back to do the hands-on. Okay. Yeah, at lesson 7, PyCharm ID, there will be a recording. Jocelyn, you can follow up with that recording at lesson 7 to install PyCharm ID and you will be good with this level. Okay. Okay, Jocelyn?
Sir.
Okay. So we will wrap up this session here. And we'll catch up on next session next week. Okay. Okay, Sriram. All right, Jocelyn. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.
Have
Good.
a good day.
Yeah. Good day, Sriram. Bye.